let's get into the goddamn. Yesterday was day 205 of protests in the city of Elizabeth City, and as you can tell, a lot more people have showed up due to the recent news that broke yesterday of the fact that sheriff deputies involved in the shooting and killing of Andrew Brown Jr. tampered with their guns after they realized how badly they fucked up. I just covered this, so you can find that article in my feed as well. But again, Deputy Meads tampered with his weapon after shooting and assassinating Andrew Brown Jr. He knew that he fucked up. Another allegation that has now been confirmed is that the sheriff deputies that were there knew ahead of time that Andrew Brown Jr. was not armed. So they went in there with machine guns, assault rifles, went in there to kill an unarmed individual. They knew he was unarmed, and afterward they tampered with their guns. So a lot of people showed up yesterday given these new confirmed allegations. These are things that we had been circling around with for the last 205 days, but it's nice to get finally that confirmation. Yes, Andrew Brown Jr. was known not to be a violent person. He was known to not carry weapons around with him. That was so obvious in the community that the officers themselves knew that he was unarmed, and they still went in there anyway, and they still murdered him in cold blood and then lied about it. So yesterday, a lot more people showed up, which is always good. I enjoy when people show up, and we had a little bit of ruckus. We walked all throughout. That one is that car is stickers. I don't even understand that one. But anyway, we walked around downtown Elizabeth City into Eringhouse Street, and we had a pretty good demonstration. It lasted about half of an hour. A lot of familiar faces that are back, which is always nice to see. And again, this is unacceptable behavior from the police. They cannot and they will not go into these communities and murder people and think they can get away with it. Because that's how it's been since the inception of this country, is police go in and murder people and then lie about it and get away with it. The most prolific serial killers in American history are cops. Again, I always look at this case with George Floyd. The press release for George Floyd has said that the officers had nothing to do with it. The officers were the heroes. Someone died of an overdose, a medical incident, and the brave police officers tried to help. That's what the press release about George Floyd said. Is that what happened? No, because cell phone video confirmed that he was murdered. But the cops were willing and ready and actively engaged in the cover-up. They wanted to paint themselves as heroes for trying to save someone who was overdosing. Oh, the heroes. Look at them. They're so brave. Turned out it was a bunch of bullfuck. And that's exactly what happened here with Andrew Brown Jr. They've been lying and lying and lying since April 21st. Since 8:30 on April 21st. They have been engaged in lie after lie after lie. And their web of lies and their house of cards is finally falling the fuck apart. And it's good to see more and more people back out to show their support for the community during this time. Again, the police are the enemy. The police are always the enemy. Why? Again, if I murdered someone at Food Line, if I stabbed them in the neck with a box cutter, I wouldn't get a paid vacation. I wouldn't get a pay bump. I wouldn't sit with my fucking feet up on the coffee table watching Netflix. I would be in jail. So the fact that these officers are still on the force, Robert Morgan, one of the murderers who fired their weapons, goes to the Muddy Waters coffee shop almost every day. And that's right over here. By the way, if you look at my mouse, it's on this side of the street behind this lady's sign. Robert Morgan loves to get himself some coffee at Muddy Waters, right? Because it's right down the street from the sheriff's department. Why is that? Why do the people at Muddy Waters serve him? He is a very obviously well-known killer. If I owned a business and someone who murdered someone and got off came into my business, I would ask them to leave. That's not the case with the police, because if you ask a police officer to leave, who knows? They have unlimited ability to kill. They killed Andrew Brown Jr. and got away with it. Maybe they'll kill you next. These people are career criminals. And again, we're at this point now where technology exists, cell phones exist, to the point where we can show what's really happening in this world. We know that George Floyd did not die of an overdose or a medical incident. We know that Andrew Brown Jr. did not have weapons on him. He was not trying to run over the sheriff deputies. We know that to be a fact. But society has a lot of catching up to do. We have a lot to do before things are actually fair and just in this country. And so, protesting and doing demonstrations is good. But really, we need to have more community solidarity. Again, at the end of the day, people need to realize that the cops are the enemy, right? I don't give a shit, what sports team you like, what your personal politics are. I don't care what video games you like. I don't care, blah, 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 blah. I don't give a shit about what anyone does. No one deserves to be shot and killed by a police officer. I don't care if they're a serial drunk, if they're an abuser. No one deserves to be shot and killed by a police officer. No one. We have a system of courts. We have a judicial system for a reason. It exists. It's real. I know they threw me into that shit during the protests. Now, again, I got off because they had no case. But again, we do have a judicial system. It is real. So while that judicial system still exists, there is not a single person that needs to be shot and killed by a police officer, and especially not someone with 7 kids who is driving away and who is known to be unarmed and had no weapons on them. Sorry. That's unacceptable. So again, it's all about community solidarity, folks. We all need to come together. We all need to work together. We all need to help each other. No one is perfect. We need to help each other achieve our best possible potential. We need to work together and understand that the government that employs police that kill people is the enemy. Someone liking a different sports team, who cares? Someone being rude to you in high school, who cares? Get over it. Because we have actual career criminals patrolling the streets looking for their next victim. That takes precedence over everything else.